All right, let's dive in. So you want to know, how Michael Jackson's impact on music compares to Taylor Swift's?
Oh, that's a big one.
Yeah, pretty loaded question,
Yeah?
but a fascinating one for sure. We've got this excerpt from an Italian text called Testo Incolato, and it makes a pretty bold case for why Michael Jackson is, well, in a league of his own.
I've seen this text before, yeah. Gets right to it, doesn't it?
Definitely does. Now, look, we're not here to, pick sides or anything. We're here to really dig into the arguments this text is making and see what we can learn from it.
Yeah, totally. It's a complex comparison, no doubt. This text, it doesn't hold back. Straight up claims Jackson didn't just, participate in the music industry. He redefined it.
Right. Strong words. So to understand that, let's unpack it a bit. They really focus on Thriller, saying Jackson's his blending of genres was a huge part of its success.
It was more than just blending, though, wasn't it? I mean, it was how he did it. Think about Beat It. You've got that rock guitar driving the song, but then Jackson's vocals, that pop sensibility, combining those, that was revolutionary back then.
It's true. It's like he created his own sound. And speaking of groundbreaking, the text makes this really interesting point about Jackson's music videos, specifically Thriller. They're saying he elevated them to art, not just like promotional tools.
Absolutely. MTV was pretty new then, and Thriller was a phenomenon, a cultural moment. It wasn't just a video, it was like a mini-movie, a spectacle. That changed how artists thought about music videos. Even today, you see its influence.
Oh, for sure. I mean, Taylor Swift definitely tells stories with her videos. It's just interesting how she's building on what Jackson kind of pioneered there with Thriller. But this text, it goes even further. It claims Jackson had this unparalleled global impact.
And remember, this is before social media, right? So that reach, it was all about his music, his connection with audiences across cultures, pure and simple. Think about songs like We Are the World, Heal the World. They turned him into a symbol for unity, for activism, on a global scale.
It's mind-blowing when you think about it, that level of recognition pre-internet. And they contrast this with Taylor Swift, right? While she's definitely a global star, she's, I guess, mainly prominent in the Western world.
Yeah, it's different. A lot of her influence is tied to this digital age we're in, which, that's not to take away from her success at all. It's just that the landscape was different for Jackson, right? He had to break through in ways that don't even apply anymore. Makes you wonder how their definition of global would change if we're talking about social media and streaming and all that.
That's a great point. It's like, how do you compare their reach when the playing field's so different? Jackson's global reach before the internet versus Swift's massive online presence, apples and oranges almost.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what makes it so interesting to compare them. But anyway, this text keeps going, claims Jackson's music has this timeless quality, recognizable even decades later.
They're making some big claims here.
Yeah.
So are they right? Is his music truly timeless?
Well, think about it. The moonwalk, his clothes, those melodies, they just transcend age. You see kids today doing the moonwalk. It's become part of our culture globally.
True. But where does Taylor Swift fit into this idea of long-term impact? The text seems to suggest she's more tied to a specific era, a specific audience.
Yeah, they're saying that while she's huge, a global star for sure, her work is closely associated with, the current music scene and her fan base. Jackson, they argue, appeals to those who, lived through his peak and to younger generations who discovered him later. It's like, will Swift's music have that same reach across generations, say, 20, 30 years from now?
It's an interesting question to consider, isn't it? Some artists capture a moment in time while others seem to go beyond that.
Totally. And here's where things get even more interesting, because the text goes on to say that Jackson wasn't just a musician, he was a complete artist, Singing, dancing, acting, the whole package.
They really highlight his live shows, saying they were more like theatrical productions. And I mean, come on, everyone knows Michael Jackson put on a show.
Oh, yeah. It was all meticulously designed, the choreography, the stage, special effects. It was groundbreaking. And you can see how it influenced artists today, like Beyonce, Lady Gaga, these huge stage productions. They owe a lot to what Jackson pioneered.
So then where does that leave Taylor Swift in this conversation about live performances?
Well, the text says that while she's an incredible songwriter, a storyteller through her music, her stage presence, and that level of innovation in her live shows, it doesn't quite reach the spectacle that Jackson achieved.
Right. They even bring up the 1993 Super Bowl halftime show as an example. That was legendary. It set the bar for pop stars headlining huge events. But let's shift gears a bit, talk accolades, because this text throws out some numbers. Jackson One of the most awarded artists ever. Tons of Grammys, record-breaking sales, the whole deal.
And it wasn't just about the numbers, though, right? Albums like Thriller, Bad, Dangerous, they weren't just successful, they were milestones. They pushed the boundaries of pop music, influenced countless artists that came after. They redefined what a pop album could be.
That's true. You can't deny that. Of course, we can't forget Taylor Swift, right?
Yeah.
She's got her own pile of awards, broken records too. Her impact is huge.
Absolutely, she's a force.
Right.
But this text, it's arguing that the sheer scope of what Jackson achieved, the innovation, hasn't been matched, at least not yet. It's putting him in a category of his own.
So it sounds like they're painting Michael Jackson as this like artistic force of nature, a true icon. His impact, they're saying, it goes beyond music, into culture, into society as a whole.
Yeah, exactly. It's about his enduring impact, how he's remembered as one of the best to ever do it.
So after hearing all of this, where do you think Taylor Swift fits into the big picture of music history? Her career is still going strong, so it's tough to say for sure. But where do you see her legacy heading?
Yeah, that's the question, isn't it? The million-dollar question. She's already done so much, but, like, how will that legacy evolve? This excerpt, Testo and Colato, it makes a really strong case for Michael Jackson, you know? But I think it brings up something important about context.
Okay, I'm with you. You're talking about, like, two artists from different eras.
Exactly. Jackson's peak, it was pre-internet, pre-social media even. He became this global phenomenon through MTV, radio, albums, a completely different world.
And Swift, she came up when an artist can connect with millions directly, right? Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Not to mention streaming, which changed everything about how we listen to music.
Right, right. It's almost impossible to compare their reach directly because the playing field's so different.
So then how do we make sense of their impact when the context is so different?
Well, maybe instead of getting stuck on who's better, we look at it as understanding their impact within their time.
I like that. Less of a competition, more about appreciating how they each, shape the music world in their own moment.
Exactly. And despite those differences, both Jackson and Swift, they've achieved something really remarkable. They've become synonymous with their eras, Like, think about it. When you say the 80s, a lot of people instantly picture Michael Jackson. His look, his music, the dance moves, he represents that time.
And you're saying, for many, Taylor Swift does that for, like, the 2010s and 2020s.
Yeah.
She's the pop star of this era, when social media and streaming are everything.
Right. So in a way, they've both achieved this, like, cultural embedding, just in very different ways.
That makes a lot of sense. But this text, it keeps saying that Jackson's music is timeless, something that, transcends generations. Can we say the same for Swift's work 20, 30 years from now?
That's the big one, isn't it? Impossible to know for sure. But what we can do is look for clues, right? How is her music connecting with people now? What elements hint at that lasting power?
Okay, so what are the clues? What makes you think her music might have that enduring quality?
Well, first of all, she's an amazing storyteller. Her songs, they often go into personal experiences, relationships, heartbreak. Those are universal themes, They resonate with people across generations.
And she's not afraid to, like, experiment with different genres,
Yeah.
right? We've seen her go from country to pop, even dabbled in folk and alternative stuff.
Yeah, that versatility can help an artist stay relevant. And remember, she's still relatively early in her career, right? There's lots of time for her sound to change, mature, maybe reach new audiences along the way.
So storytelling, genre bending, a career that's still developing. What else should we be looking at when we think about her potential legacy?
This is something the text doesn't really touch on, but I think it's huge. Her connection with her fans. Swift has built this incredibly dedicated fan base, and a lot of that is through social media.
Oh, yeah, for sure. She's known for interacting with fans online, dropping hints about new music. She even shows up at their weddings sometimes.
Exactly. That kind of engagement, it creates this sense of community, this loyalty that's hard to find. And those devoted fans, they're more likely to keep listening to her music as they get older, maybe even introduce it to the next generation.
So while this text is focused on Jackson's, like, global impact in a different time, Swift's connection with her fans, that could be key to her own long-term influence.
Absolutely. It's a different kind of reach, but it's powerful. It makes you think about how fandom is changing and how that can make an artist stay relevant.
But let's play devil's advocate for a second, right?
Yeah.
Even with a dedicated fan base, amazing storytelling, is there a chance her music could still become, dated, too tied to the sounds of the 2010s, 2020s,
It's a risk, always, especially in pop music. Trends come and go so fast, but I think there are elements of Swift's work that hint at that that timelessness.
Okay, like what? Give me an example.
Her songwriting, I mean, yeah, her production, it often reflects the current pop sound, but her lyrics, they often have this depth, this poetic quality that can go beyond a specific musical style. They speak to human experiences, things that stay relevant even if the music around them changes.
I see what you mean. Like the words themselves might stay powerful, even if the music sounds like retro decades from now.
Exactly. And we see that with artists who've lasted, right? Songwriters like Bob Dylan, Joni Mitchell, Paul Simon. Their words still resonate because they tap into something deeper,
Yeah.
something that connects on a human level, regardless of trends.
So you're saying even if pop music changes completely in the next few decades, Swift's lyrics, that could be what keeps her music relevant.
It's possible, yeah. And that's
Yeah.
what makes this so interesting, right? We're trying to predict cultural influence, which is, impossible to do for sure.
It's like we're trying to guess which seeds are going to grow into these mighty oaks and which ones are going to like just wither away.
That's a great way to put it. And only time will tell which artists will have that lasting impact, that timeless quality this text talks about with Michael Jackson. But it's fun to think about, right? Trying to see those clues, make guesses about whose work will endure.
Totally. So for our listener, what should they be paying attention to as Taylor Swift's career keeps going? What are the signs that her music might have that staying power?
That's a great question. I'd say look for a few things. First, does her songwriting keep evolving? Does she go into new themes, explore different emotions? Does she push herself as a lyricist?
Lyrical growth, got it. What else?
Second, does she keep taking risks creatively? Experimenting with genres? Does her music push boundaries, challenge conventions, even if it means maybe losing some fans along the way? That willingness to evolve is key.
So artistic boldness, that's another one to watch. Makes sense. Anything else?
Last one, and this is big. Pay attention to how she interacts with her fan base. Does that connection stay strong, authentic, even as her music changes? Do her fans grow with her? Does she bring them along?
Because ultimately those fans are the ones who will like carry her music forward, right?
Exactly. They're the ones who will share her songs with their kids, their grandkids, potentially keep her legacy alive for decades.
This has been such a great conversation, hasn't it? We started by comparing musical achievements, and now we're talking about cultural impact. And it's clear that both Michael Jackson and Taylor Swift, they've left their mark on the world in their own ways.
And the cool thing is, Taylor Swift's story isn't over yet. It'll be interesting to see how her influence continues to, develop.
Oh, for sure. So to our listener, we leave you with this thought. As you keep listening to these artists, don't just pay attention to the music, but to the conversations they start, the boundaries they push, the lives they touch. That's how you'll really see their impact, now and in the future.
It's wild to think, right? We started this deep dive comparing, albums and awards, and now we're talking about cultural shifts. It's been a journey for sure.
Yeah, hasn't it? But that's what makes this stuff so interesting, I think. Music, it's not just sounds, it's connected to everything else.
For sure. So, okay, we've dissected this Italian text, Testo and Colato, comparing Jackson and Swift, musically speaking. They've both made a huge impact, no doubt. But what about their influence on culture as a whole?
Right, right. That's kind of where I wanted to go next. This text, it's mostly focused on the music itself, innovation, global reach, all that. But what if we, zoom out a bit?
Okay, I like it. Let's zoom out, go beyond just the songs.
Exactly. Let's think about how they've shaped conversations, influenced fashion, challenged norms, the bigger picture stuff. Ooh, getting meta. All right, so in that sense, in terms of cultural impact, how do they compare?
Well, like the text says, Michael Jackson, he was this global phenomenon, right? He broke down racial barriers in a way that, was pretty unheard of back then. He became a symbol, for unity, for breaking free from those constraints.
And it wasn't just the music either. His fashion, his dance moves, those music videos, they all became, part of our cultural language.
Totally. It was more than just songs. He was creating a whole aesthetic, a movement that millions of people connected with.
Powerful stuff. So then where does Taylor Swift fit into this bigger view of cultural influence? How has she, shaped the conversation beyond just her music?
Okay, so that's where things get really interesting, I think. She's gotten a lot of praise for being outspoken, right? Gender equality, LGBTQ plus rights, how artists get paid.
Yeah. She uses her platform to advocate for causes. And that has a real impact on her fans, especially young people. It's different from what the text describes with Jackson, but is it less important?
That's a great question, and it's tough to say for sure. But she's definitely engaging with these big issues in a way that resonates with her audience. And even beyond the political stuff, she's also started conversations about body image, about relationships, the pressures of fame, being open about her own struggles. That's connected with a lot of people going through similar things.
It's like she's using her fame to have this dialogue with her fans about things that matter to them.
Exactly, exactly. And that's a form of influence, for sure, even if it's not, about global unity in the same way. It's more personal, about empowerment, about saying, hey, I struggle with this too, and it's okay to talk about it.
So if I'm following you, the text highlights Jackson's impact on this huge global scale, while Swift is maybe having a more intimate but still significant impact on individual lives.
That's a good way to put it, yeah. Different kind of shift, but a shift nonetheless.
Man, this has been a wild deep dive, I gotta say. From comparing hits to, analyzing cultural movements.
Yeah.
It's clear they've both left their mark in big ways.
And the exciting thing is, with Taylor Swift, her story's still being written, right? We get to watch how her influence evolves.
Totally. So, to our listener, we'll leave you with this. As you follow these artists, don't just listen to the music. Pay attention to the conversations they spark, the boundaries they push, the lives they touch. That's where you'll see their real impact, now and for years to come.